tell you more about himself as well as the foundation, and then, as usual, we'll have questions and answers at the end, and I'll let you know what's coming up at future sessions as well. Chuck?
Okay, thank you, appreciate it. I think I got brochures out on everybody's seat there. If you didn't get one, holler at me and we'll try and catch anybody. Yeah, yes, you got one already, all right. I brought these along. This is kind of something for you to take with you, tell you a little bit more about our organization. And
my friend here asked if you'd spell your name.
I certainly can, because in fact I was waiting for somebody maybe to ask me to say it again or pronounce it or something. So
say it again and pronounce it.
You bet.
Do both.
I can do both. It's Chuck Gysi, G-Y-S-I. Very short and sweet. No, it's a derivative of Gysi. Sure.
Did you change that when you were 4 years old?
No, actually, well, my dad pronounced it Gysi, and my mom pronounced it Gysi. So us kids kind of pronounce it the way my mom pronounced it. So things changed, as you know. So, yeah. Yes.
I'm not German, but in Germany they say Gysi.
And it's German Swiss. So you bet. Yeah. I've heard it pronounced Gysi as well.
Yeah, so many different ways. They
Yes.
got dialects like we have.
Yeah, and there's probably about 5, 6 different ways of spelling it. Although the way we spell it, there's only probably about between 12 and 3 dozen people in the United States that spell it that way. And half of them are all my family. So there's another sect down on the West Coast we've kind of come across. So, but it's kind of interesting just looking that up on the internet and whatnot. So in any event, I'm here today as a representative of the Rochester Area Foundation. Steve Thornton, our executive director, was going to make the presentation today. He had a family situation, he couldn't be with you. He did ask me to step in and chat with you folks today. I'm the communications officer at the Rochester Area Foundation, and I'd like to thank you for inviting us to spend some time with you today to tell you a little bit about the Rochester Area Foundation and its role in the community, which as I found as I started digging through our archives, is somewhat of a rich history, and its roots are well into this community. Since I've been a kid, I've always had an interest in history, but it's been more local history as opposed to national or world history. I want to know why the town surrounding me is what it is today. The only problem I've encountered along the way is I've now lived in 11 communities in 4 states. And these communities range in size from rural townships to county seats, the college towns, the suburbs, and medium-sized cities. And each community has its own distinct flavor of history. Unfortunately, along the way, I've also purchased local history books in an effort to learn more about the communities I've lived in. So I've got a little collection on my shelf at home of all these little books and pamphlets, etc. A little over a year ago, I found myself starting over once again. Here I am in Rochester, Minnesota, where I once again find myself embarked on a new history study. I started work at the Rochester Area Foundation in 2001 as its new communications officer. And my wife and I moved here almost a year ago from Austin so we could concentrate our lives on one community instead of 2. In the slightly more than a year that I've been with the Rochester Area Foundation, I have learned much about our organization and its people through the years. On the same note, I have learned how important this organization has become to the Rochester area in the past 59 years. There are many things our community, Olmsted County, and the surrounding area as well would not have today had it not been for the Rochester Area Foundation's foresight and very existence. In the past, I've worked for newspapers with a long and varied history that spans a century and sometimes much longer. I've always enjoyed hearing stories about the history of my former employers and reading details about this history. Unfortunately, there hasn't been much history written about the Rochester Area Foundation. When I went to prepare my talk with you folks today, I found that we had lots and bits and pieces in our files. In fact, there's a file cabinet in one of our file drawer in one of our file cabinets that's marked historical files. And that's about the content of our history. Today I'd like to make an attempt at splicing together all these bits and pieces from our historical files and paint a picture of an organization that has been created to benefit this community. Let's take a step back in time. Let's reverse the clocks about 6 decades. But as you will see, the history that I'm going to tell you about even goes back farther than that. The Rochester Area Foundation's genesis starts with the vision of the late Harry J. Harwick, chairman of the Mayo Foundation from 1939 to 1958. He suggested that a study group be formed in 1942 to determine whether a community foundation would work in Rochester. A special committee of the Rochester Community Chest was appointed on October 23, 1942 to investigate the feasibility of a community foundation in the city of Rochester. The committee consisted of the Reverend G.P. Sheridan, Mr. A.J. Lobb, Mr. M.M. Hayden, Mr. Hayes Dansenberg, and Mr. G.S. Schuster, who served as chairman. That committee studied other community foundations across the United States at the time. It looked at a similar situation in New Britain, Connecticut, where a community chest was looking for a place to entrust its reserves, and a foundation was created for that task in that community. The study committee also sought the advice and guidance of the National Association of Community Foundations, which became the Council on Foundations in 1964. Today, the Rochester Area Foundation is a proud member of the same Council on Foundations. Early on in its study, the Rochester Community Chest Committee determined that a community foundation would be best served by a board of trustees, stating that, quote, its success or failure would depend upon attracting to such trusteeship the ablest men and women of judgment in the community with suitable provisions for successors of superior caliber, end quote. On May 11, 1944, the Committee of the Community Chest recommended to its president and board of directors that a community foundation be formed as quickly as possible, and they also quickly assembled articles of incorporation, and bylaws were drafted at the same time. So in December of 1944, the Rochester Community Foundation was born. On December 5th of that year, the Mayo Properties Association, which is now the Mayo Foundation, transferred an unconditional gift of $3,500 to the newly formed Community Foundation. Its second gift was a check in the amount of $200, and that came from a Dr. Christopher Graham on February 16, 1945. A week later, the Mayo Properties Association transferred yet another gift to the foundation, a $50,000 gift. Other funds followed quickly into the foundation's coffers. In April 1945, A.C. Gooding, who was custodian of a fund that had built up for charitable purposes from various sources, transferred more than $9,000 to the foundation. That followed 3 months later when a transfer from the Rochester Community Chest of an amount in excess of $12,000 was transferred as well. That follows for more than a decade with additional transfers from the Community Chest. I mentioned earlier that the roots of the Rochester Area Foundation actually go back farther than its 1944 birth date. For instance, the Rochester Community Chest, which gave birth to the foundation through its careful study, was established in 1925. As an FYI, the Rochester Community Chest became the United Fund of Greater Rochester, and that in turn became today's United Way of Olmsted County. In the first half of the 1970s, the foundation returned funds to the United Way that were entrusted to it over the years at the request of the United Way. In January 1945, the Rochester Community Foundation filed incorporation papers with the state of Minnesota. The original incorporators were Rochester residents G. Slade Schuster, the Reverend G.P. Sheridan, Albert J. Lobb, Mortimer M. Hayden, and Henry O. Christensen. The original board of trustees included Rochester residents Earl R. Baker, Walter T. Hazley, Harry J. Harwick, Theodore J. Johansson, John T. Lemon, Dr. Robert D. Mussey, James M. O'Connor, Oscar C. Ronkin, and Harold Thompson. Harry Harwick was elected the foundation's first chairman of the board. In 1948, the foundation made its first grant. It was a grant of $5,000 to the Girl Scouts to assist with the development of a Girl Scout camp. In 1949, the foundation received its first major bequest from Jenny E. Moe of Byron. The Jenny Moe Trust of $59,410 was dedicated to assisting blind persons, and later was expanded to include organizations aiding persons with eye ailments and otherwise handicapped persons. With careful investment through the years, that fund has paid out several times the original investment in total grants to benefit our community. The Jenny Moe Fund is an excellent example of how The charitable objectives of a donor have been served for generations. In 1961, the foundation changed its name to simply the Rochester Foundation. And the name changed again in 1978 to what we now know as the Rochester Area Foundation, and that was to reflect the wider area that the foundation was now serving at the time. That same year in 1978, the foundation gave its first area grant, a total of $1,000 to the Chatfield Brass. Through its grant making, the foundation began building a rich tradition of providing funding to expand existing programs and to seed new initiatives. Foundation grants were a catalyst for the development of residential services to the developmentally and physically challenged, the establishment of the Greater Rochester Area University Center, the identification of need for low-income housing, expansion of child care assistance, and creating services for victims of crime. In 1983, the foundation's assets reached $1 million. The Board of Trustees decided that the increased level of requests and correspondence required the services of a part-time paid employee. At that time, a half-time executive director was hired for the foundation. The foundation celebrated its 40th anniversary in 1985. During its first 40 years, assets grew to $1.3 million, and more than $1 million was awarded in grants during that same time period. A half-time administrative assistant was added to assist with the growing work demands. The rate of growth of the foundation's assets started to accelerate. By December 1988, the endowment rose to $2 million. The following year, 1989, was a pivotal year in the foundation's history. Aaron and Sharon Tuntlin established the first donor-advised fund with the Rochester Area Foundation in 1989 and made the largest gift ever received by the organization at that time. Their decision was made during a time when the trustees had commenced a concentrated strategic planning process.
What? You want to say what their gift was?
It was slightly less than $1 million.
Thank you.
You bet. The Tuntlins' confidence in the organization to assist them in carrying out their philanthropic interests helped the board in developing new strategies. The board decided to embark on a plan to build the foundation into a visible, active leader on key community needs and to energetically pursue asset development activities. To support the planned increase in activity, the board also decided to take the financial risk of increasing staffing to 2 full-time positions. They recognized that operational costs as a percentage of the endowment would be high and require rapid endowment growth to justify expenditures. The full complement of staff was completed in May 1990. Although asset growth had continued to accelerate, the increase in the rate of growth was below the level needed to justify the operational costs. In 1993, the trustees decided to pursue a challenge grant to help attract needed current gifts. The process of applying to the Bush Foundation for a challenge grant had transformed the Rochester Area Foundation. As a predominantly volunteer-directed organization through its first 49 years of operation, the foundation needed to develop administrative structures and policies. With the excellent counsel of the Bush Foundation, the Rochester Area Foundation moved aggressively to develop investment policies, diversify its investment management, develop concrete asset development strategies, and focus its grant-making activities. The Bush Foundation awarded the Rochester Area Foundation its first ever Endowment Challenge Grant in October of 1993. At the time of the award, the foundation's assets stood at $4 million. The terms of the 4-year challenge grant provided for a total of $500,000 in matching funds once the Rochester Area Foundation raised $3.3 million in new endowment. Without question, the process of preparing the organization to be qualified to receive a challenge grant, the Bush Foundation's advice and counsel, and the stimulative effect of the actual grant was transformative. The Rochester Area Foundation completed the campaign 10 months early, and at the end of 1997 had reached $10.5 million in assets. The foundation has had additional opportunities to work with the Bush Foundation in increasing its endowment for the Rochester area.
What is the Bush Foundation?
It's based up in the Twin Cities area, and they do work with foundations, and I don't know exactly all the organizations they work with, but they do.
Is it state or federal?
It's a regional, I think, at best.
Archibald Bush was
Yes.
one of the 2 men that started 3M.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I know they do some grants throughout the country. I think it's more regional, perhaps. especially Minnesota. The foundation's assets skyrocketed during the 1990s. From the meager beginnings of $75,000 and $700 in 1945, the endowment now has reached about $16 million. Of course, the stock market has certainly had an effect on how that works. We all know how that works. So, again, that's up from only slightly over $3 million in 1990 and doubling that amount by 1995. At the same time, grants have increased to the community as well. From $370 in 1950 to $210,000 in 1990, the numbers rose during the past decade. From 1992 to 1996, the foundation paid out $500,000 in grants. During that same kind of time frame, from 1997 to 2001, grants totaled $2.4 million to our community, and that's exclusive of our First Homes initiative. Now, if you don't mind, I've kind of told you about how the Rochester Area Foundation came to our community. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about what the foundation actually does for our area. When I came on board to the Rochester Area Foundation staff more than a year ago, the one phrase I kept hearing over and over again was that the foundation was one of Rochester's best kept secrets. And it's basically my task to help change that, and it's certainly one of the reasons why I'm joining with you folks today. What has the Rochester Area Foundation become today? It's a permanent and growing endowment built through gifts of thousands of individuals and organizations. It's a partnership of donors, charities, and the community working together to find solutions to critical community needs. The Rochester Area Foundation serves as a bridge between charitable-minded people and a broader community. It helps donors reach their charitable and financial goals. It provides grants to nonprofits to improve the quality of life. It develops programs like First Homes to meet critical community needs. The foundation is dedicated to improving the quality of life, promoting equality of opportunity, and assisting those in need. The foundation awards grants in 5 areas, basically: arts and culture, community development, education, human services, and recreation. There are many ways to give to your community through the Rochester Area Foundation. For instance, you can leave a legacy, help others, build a better community, feel good, and realize income and estate tax savings. My point in talking with you today is that should you choose to give and do so effectively, you should consider your values, your reasons for giving, your goals, both philanthropic and financial, and create a plan. The Rochester Area Foundation can help you realize your goals and deliver you customized, personalized services you work to achieve them. Gysi, Schuster, an original incorporator, offers an excellent reason why persons should consider the foundation as a way to invest in their community. He said, quote, "Those who have funds to be used for the long-term benefit of our city can find, I believe, no better vehicle than the Rochester Area Foundation. Its role in our community affairs is unique," end quote. Despite the fact that community foundations have been active in the United States since the early 1900s and are part of a rapidly growing field that numbers more than 600 today, we realize that not enough people have a clear understanding of just what we are and what we help people do. So with that, let's take a look at some basic definitions. We have found that sometimes it helps to break down the term community foundation and examine those parts to better understand the whole. Simply stated, a community is a group of people connected by geography and to each other. Or to put it another way, a community is made up of people who share a sense of belonging. The second half of the name, foundation, can be described as a platform for growth. So if we put these two concepts together, we can define a community foundation as a platform for building community. Here's a more specific description of the Rochester Area Foundation. We are a tax-exempt public charity created by and for the people of the greater Rochester area and Olmsted County. So now that you know what we are, the next logical question might be, what is different about a community foundation? Just what differentiates community foundations from other types of organized philanthropy? Well, a community foundation has 3 special features, and I'd like to touch briefly on each. It is important to note that the combination of these features that distinguishes community foundations and provides the opportunities for donors and our community. The first feature is personalized service. Our community foundation provides personalized service helping individuals and families achieve their charitable and financial goals by offering tools and resources that make giving easy, flexible, and effective. We educate people on charitable giving vehicles, and we offer a variety of funds to suit individual needs and preferences. Some approaches focus on giving in the near term, while others enable donors to make giving a part of their estate planning strategy. We customize giving approaches to match personal interests and tax planning needs. Our donors benefit from the highest available tax advantages because we are a public charity. We facilitate even the most complex forms of giving. We accept a variety of assets and offer an attractive alternative to starting a private foundation because we handle all record keeping, reporting to the Internal Revenue Service, accounting, and investment management. We pool the assets of individual funds, giving us economies of scale to hire top investment managers. We share our knowledge of community needs. We offer local grant-making expertise and administrative services. We help people create personal legacies via named funds and help ensure that future generations learn the value of giving back as well. We offer involvement in recommending to our board of directors uses for a gift, and we provide the option to give anonymously as well. Through highly personalized services, we're able to create solutions that fit virtually every giver in every situation. The second primary feature of community foundations is local expertise. Your community foundation is a local organization staffed by people from the community and led by a local board of trustees. This group of people has an in-depth knowledge of the issues, opportunities, and resources that shape our community. This enables them to play a key role in solving community problems, while helping donors learn more about local needs in order to make their giving as effective as possible. We gather information and track the many local agencies and programs working for our community. Based on this information, we can make grants and direct resources to the most appropriate areas. We also stay alert to emerging issues and foster giving and volunteerism in our community, often serving as a catalyst, bringing together groups of people to work on solutions to community problems. That's why we say our community foundation can make a difference where it's needed most. The third feature I'd like to tell you about is the role our community foundation plays as a community leader. As a community leader, we play a key role in addressing community needs, now and in the future. Our First Homes initiative is an excellent example of how we responded full tilt to community needs. We act as a community catalyst, bringing diverse voices and groups together to address local issues and fostering greater giving and volunteering in our community. We build endowments to ensure grants are always available to support the community. We support high-impact opportunities. We are governed by leaders who have strong ties to this community. It's our business to build community. To sum up, your community foundation provides personalized service to donors, has deep local expertise, and acts as a community leader. Now that I've introduced you to our foundation, I do want to tell you a little bit about how to give to our organization as well, so that our community can benefit for many more generations to come. Again, I emphasize that our foundation is flexible in giving. If you want to create a legacy or make a simple donation, we can tailor your gift to our needs, and your needs as well. As you can see in the annual report that I've distributed this morning, we have a variety of options for gifts depending on your need. I invite you to look through this annual report and see how many residents of our community have already made an impact on building this community. We also assist organizations that have their own endowments by managing their funds. As you can see in the annual report, there are quite a few organizations around the area, and churches as well, that have entrusted us with their funds. Donors can start and maintain their choice of charitable funds in a number of ways. We accept a range of charitable instruments, including outright gifts of cash, stock, real estate, or other assets, all of which qualify for a maximum tax advantage. People also can give through a bequest by designating a portion of their estate. Through a gift annuity, you can make a gift of cash or other assets to the Community Foundation now, get immediate tax benefits, and receive back an annuity for life. A gift annuity is a great solution for many older charitable individuals. This is a new tool that we've just begun to offer in the last several months, and a lot of residents are taking a good look at this program that we've started. I've distributed a brochure as well this morning that describes the charitable gift annuity program that we now have. The main thing is the Rochester Area Benefits Gift Annuity Program can benefit you for life. I'd like to conclude by summarizing the 10 most common reasons why people choose to give through community foundations, much like the Rochester Area Foundation. 1, we are a local organization with deep roots in the community. Number 2, our professional program staff has broad expertise regarding community issues and needs. Number 3, we provide highly personalized service tailored to each individual's charitable and financial interest. Number 4, our donor-advised funds help people invest in the causes they care most about. Number 5, we accept a wide variety of assets and can facilitate even the most complex forms of giving. Number 6, we partner with professional advisors throughout the area to create highly effective approaches to charitable giving. Number 7, we offer a maximum tax advantage under both state and federal law. Number 8, we multiply the impact of gift dollars by pooling them with other gifts and grants. Number 9, we build endowment funds that benefit the community forever and help create personal legacies. And number 10, we are a community leader, convening agencies and resources to create positive change. I want to leave you today with 2 simple thoughts. First, community foundations are the fastest growing forms of philanthropy in the United States today. And second, a thought from an unidentified Greek philosopher who said, quote, "When a person plants a tree under which she will never sit, then you know that civilization has come to that land," end quote. We think that's a nice way to help people think about the value and role of community foundations in society today. We're here for good and forever. We're the Rochester Area Foundation. I appreciate the opportunity to tell you folks about our organization today. Certainly, I think we can open it to questions now.
Did you support the new art center?
We have some funds with the New Arts Center as well, yes. They have some grant money they received from us.
How much?
I don't know off the top of my head the total amount.
How many board members do you have, and who are they? At the
If
present
you-
time?
Okay, at the present
And how
time,
long do they serve?
board
And do
members,
they serve without pay?
good,
Several
very good question, very good question.
How many staff do you have? Yeah, that's a good
I'll answer all of them.
Thank you.
And if I forget one, bring me back to it.
We will.
I have a tendency to do that sometimes. If you look inside the annual report for the Rochester Area Foundation, you'll see, I believe it's on page 1, 2, 3, 4, somewhere about there, there's photos of all our board members. That's changed a little bit since then, and we're actually going through a process of bringing some new board members onto our board. And that'll happen the next month or 2, and we'll certainly let the public know about that through the media who our new board members are.
How do you go about selecting a board member?
We do have a committee that works with that, nominations committee, et cetera, and they work to find new board members. They look for people who certainly benefit the community by becoming a board member and bringing something to our board of trustees. We currently have 15 board members. We might go up a few board members as we bring these new members on board. Board members serve a 3-year term, and by state law, you can only serve a nonprofit for 10 years in Minnesota. So our board members come on, they serve a 3-year term. If they wish to continue, they can serve an additional 2 terms as well. Staff-wise, we have, and they are not paid. Okay, I certainly want to make that clear. Our staff right now consists of 5 people in our office. Our executive director, Steve Thornton. We have a secretary, Karen Huffs. She's usually the person who answers the phone when you call in. Myself as communications officer. It's a new position that was created to get the word out about our organization and certainly help to build our endowment. And then we also have 2 people who work for our First Homes program exclusively in the office, a program officer and an executive director of that program as well.
Those are all compensated.
Yes, they are. Yes.
You mentioned that somebody gave a big endowment about 1998 or 99. How much was that?
1989, the Tutlin's gift?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, that was slightly less than $1 million.
And then you mentioned, was that sort of a matching or what you had?
Their gift? Oh, maybe you're talking, about the Bush Foundation Challenge Grant in 1993?
Yes.
Yeah, it was a $500,000 grant, a challenge grant given to the Rochester Area Foundation. However, we had to raise, I think it was $3.1 million. We had to match that, and then once we reached that amount, we received that $500,000 from the Bush Foundation. We've also had other opportunities to work with the Bush Foundation to get additional funds.
And do you have it, how do you have it invested for income?
We have, I guess there's a 2-pronged approach to our investment. One is we have an investment committee, and these people in our committee, they serve without compensation. They are local community people. And these people are people who know investments, and they've either done this through their careers or they're still doing it in their careers, and they know how this works. We also hire a professional investment counsel, and this firm takes a look at, reviews our accounts, and it certainly makes suggestions to us, and the committee responds as well in conjunction with the board of trustees as well.
Who
Actually,
is
it's a
that,
three-month
who is that firm that you hire?
We just hired a new firm in St. Louis. We went through a process, we brought in a bunch of different firms actually, and went through the process of identifying the firm that would work best with us and give the most to the community through their investment advice.
Can you name some of the things that the board is, for example, the Boys and Girls Club, do you support that? I mean, does they,
We've worked with the Boys and Girls Club on some
have you
different
given
things.
them money?
Yeah, and certainly some of the funds for that also come out some of our donor advised funds as well. Sometimes people who give us money, they have a fund, a donor advised fund, and they choose what organizations they can give to.
What are some other examples?
Boy, you know, I could go on here for a long time giving you a list of
No,
things,
let's give
yeah.
3 or 4 of the big ones.
There's certainly a lot of large grants. I try and give off the top of my head here, but literally almost every nonprofit has some involvement. Like the Ability Building Center, ABC, out northwest side of town, they recently put a new, extended their building. We gave a significant gift, $25,000. In fact, there's a picture of it in front of our annual report, to help them realize the funds they needed to put that addition on, and for job training. That's certainly one. The Art Center is certainly one we've given a significant amount of money to get that building up as well. We touch so many different organizations.
Do you move outside of the charitable area into the, well, I'm thinking like Celestica just forward. Do you play a role there in any way?
Not at the present time. It's certainly something that we certainly keep an eye out for. It. There should be some effect in the community that somebody would come to us, or we identify that there might be a need in the community. We might take the initiative. It's probably too soon to look at something like that. One of the things, you know, we really looked at, and I go back to this, our First Homes program. We saw that there was a need for starter housing in this community for workers. You know, people were coming to town, getting jobs. They had no place the rents were either high, or it was tough trying to find a place to rent, or they wanted to own their homes. They wanted to invest in this community. They're working here. They want to be a part of this community. What better way than to become a homeowner? There was a shortage of starter homes out there, so the First Homes program was started in an effort to alleviate that problem. To date, we've put, I don't know the exact number because it changes every day, literally, but it's probably about 250 new homes we've already gotten people into, workers in this community, and another 250 or so are in market rate rental units right now as well.
I'm a little bit confused on this First Homes thing. It seems, you mentioned it a number of times, and it seems like you have a significant portion of your staff devoted to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was 2 out of...
2, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
5.
And just exactly what is it you're giving away, and who are you giving it to?
Good questions. I did distribute an annual report for First Homes as well that was produced last year. It certainly has a lot of information about what First Homes is and the communities we're serving. Right now we have homes in about 10 different communities. The First Homes program, one of the things the foundation, in identifying the need for the First Homes program, it also had to raise money to get this thing off the ground. We're probably about $500,000 short of the original goal, and we're getting it. But we've raised about $12.15 million so far. But the thing about that $12.5 million that we've are going to raise, the thing about that is that money is used to leverage probably about $128 million in other funds, because we're getting money from the state to help people buy these homes. The city is given money on an individual basis as well. Every home buyer that goes through the First Homes program in the city of Rochester gets a $10,000 tax increment financing cut from the city. That's $10,000 off the cost of that house to get them in that house. Some of the smaller communities, the amount may be less, it may be $8,000 in the surrounding areas. We're getting a lot of money through the state to help close the gap to get these people in the home. In other words, you have a normal home buyer who, you know, makes a significant salary. They're up here, they can afford to buy a house here, and they can pay the market rate. They can go out and spend $150,000, $200,000 or more for a house. But the worker trying to get into a house in the community, and we all know, we all know the housing rate, what the cost is in this community. It's tough unless you buy something that's really run down. So what we do is we try and help close that gap by bringing in additional funds. So maybe this worker can't afford a $120,000 house or a $128,000 house. What we do is we try and close the gap. Maybe they can afford an $88,000 house. So what we do is we try and bring in some gap money to help close that gap to get them into that house.
So is this in effect a gift to that person that's buying that house?
They're required to pay back some of these loans. It depends on the amount where it comes from. But one thing I want to say in regard to that as well, we're actually changing the First Homes program as we speak. We realize that some people might get into some of these homes and perhaps they live there a year or two, they move on, they realize the financial gains from that property, and that money that came from like the TIF money, the state money, that's gone forever once that person moves on. But it did get that person to the house, and it may get somebody else in that home that maybe they couldn't come into the First Homes program, maybe they make a little bit more and still get into that house. It's not as affordable, but it's still more of an affordable home. So what we're doing now is we're starting a program called the Community Land Trust. And we've been doing this for, about a year and a half now, but we're really starting to pour it on because we can get more people into homes through the Community Land Trust. And through the Community Land Trust, what we're doing is we're going in and buying the land. First Homes is going to own the land that the house is sitting on, and the homeowner owns the house. So it's a partnership. You know, we can cut $30,000 off the cost of the house by us owning the land, and then we lease that land back to the homeowner for $50 a month. So that, you know, they still have an obligation, you know, and that money then in turn is going to help the First Homes program, obviously, you know, to continue on through the years as well. But that's one of the things we're really excited about, and you're going to hear a lot more about it in the coming months, is the Community Land Trust, because we're going to be able to get more people into homes, I think, by this, because they won't need to make as much money and get them into those homes a lot faster, too.
Does that solve the problem that you talked about earlier about somebody taking advantage of the original gift?
Yes, in fact, yeah, that's where I was going, and I forgot to mention. What this does is it keeps these homes as starter homes forever, literally, because the ground lease is a 99-year lease. It's renewable, so 198 years from now, First Home's still around. We may have, you know, some houses around, but the thing is that home is going to remain as a starter home forever because we have first right to go in and buy that house when they move out. So what we do, you know, they get us a little bit of money. We split the, you know, the gain with the home buyer, so it's not like, you know, they're not going to get anything out of it, because we want them to move on, literally. We want them to come in, make their payments, you know, get good credit rating with their mortgage, and then a couple years down the road, maybe, you know, maybe the family has grown, they need a bigger house, move out. We want that because we want somebody else to come in and live in that house as a starter home. And sure, the value of that house is going to go up a little bit, but we can keep that value down because we're going to own it still. So,
where are these houses and how many a year are you leveraging?
The great thing about it is you can't tell where they're at. You know, we had Governor Gysi here a couple times for our First Homes program, and we had him out to one of the neighborhoods, Valley Side Estates, out past Eastwood Golf Course on the southeast side of town. And he was walking up the street with us, and you know, a lot of homes around there. Some are First Homes houses, and some are not. And he said, "Well, show me a First Homes house." Well, you can't tell because they look like every other house in the neighborhood, and that's one of the things we're doing. We don't want, you know, a big cluster of houses over here to all sell. These are all First Homes houses because they're normal people. I mean, they're just we want everything to look the same. So these houses are done by builders in town who go out and have a subdivision they're working on, and they say, "Hey, I've got some lots here I can probably work with you on." And those houses might be designated as First Homes. There may be one here, one here, one here, one over here. You just don't know. You can't tell driving down the street whether these are First Homes houses or a normal neighborhood up in, you know, northwest side of town or wherever.
Yeah, and how many per year?
The Community Land Trust program has been a little slow start for us because there are a lot of regulatory problems we've run into. The federal government just makes us jump through hoops, let me tell you. But we're working on that, and I think we're close to where we almost want all of these homes in the future through First Homes to be community land trust homes. I think right now, as I said, we've done about 250 homes in the community that people are owning now. Of that amount, I just heard the number yesterday or the day before, and I think we're at about 20 that are in the land trust program right now. We started our first one was back in October of 2001, and we had a few more through last year, and we've got, I think, 5 more in the books right now, just waiting for paperwork to close on. Ideally, I think most of the ones in the future will be that way because, as you know, the state's budget is in a little bit of a shambles right now, and we may lose some money that we've had coming to the state for this program. So it's going to be more important for us to look at the community land trust program because the funds will certainly make it easier to accommodate that program. So I think you know, our goal when the program was announced back in 1999 was 875 homes, and that basically broke down to 500 single-family homes and 375 multi-family units. Technically, we're halfway there. We're halfway there with the number of homes, and we're well over halfway as far as the multi-family units. So I think that and certainly we get a lot more people coming into the program all the time. It's a matter of the land being available too. As you know, developers have to go out and buy the land and put the infrastructure in order to open up some areas, and we need the lots, you know, to help build these homes on. So I think you'll see the numbers increase. I don't know the exact number, but I know if I were to take a guess, and the way I'm not good at guessing, there's probably 100 homes or more last year that we got people into.
Now, one of the reasons the houses are high is because of the demand. I mean, for example, we sold our family house 10 years ago for $70,000. Now they can get $145,000, $150,000. Well, if you build houses, wouldn't it be cheaper to build houses than buy from the existing market?
In all honesty, I think the First Homes program is certainly realizes things like that, and by building new homes all the time certainly isn't the end all. Our staff is constantly taking a look at things like that, and it might be in the picture sometime in the future where we go in and perhaps look at a house and say, hey, we could turn this around and for a lot less money than building a new house, make this a very nice home for a family. So that's certainly something that might happen in the future as the First Homes program evolves. It's a matter, but we certainly wouldn't do that without letting our donors know and looking at other avenues as well. Make sure that's something that would be very viable for the long-term effect of the program.
And then another thing I was thinking of, prefabricated houses. You know, right after World War II, I don't. Would you remember back in about 47 or 48, there was one company in Chicago that built these houses you could assemble. And there's one. There was a metal house, in fact. And there's one in the Northeast. It's still in existence. One clinic, a woman that works at the clinic lives there, and she's happy, insulated and everything. And it looks. I went by there recently, and it looks almost as nice as when I remember when it was first built. And somehow that didn't take off. I mean, why could you explore that, or are there state regulations that prohibit? I mean, that restrict that type of building?
That's a good question. I think if you look at some of those homes, you know, her home perhaps is an exception, and it's certainly she's done a great job with it.
I wish I would have bought it myself.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and there's a great write-up on it not too long ago.
Oh yeah, it's a collector's item now.
Exactly.
And it was written up in the Rochester magazine.
Exactly.
As a collector's item.
But you know, I think a lot of those homes maybe didn't weather the time, and that's not to say that that's any kind of reflection on the manufacture of those homes. We have had some proposals come before us as far as building some what they call manufactured homes. You know, maybe they assemble them off-site and then bring them in on the back of a truck. The problem is some of those need to meet some of our needs, and we do have specific needs for homes. So if they meet those needs, we certainly take a look at them. If they don't, then we have to reject them, but it's certainly something we've taken a look at. No question.
Could you talk a little bit about what it's like to try and get people to make endowments in a town where we've got that clinic, like an 800-pound gorilla that's got a staff of people that are doing the same thing?
You bet. It's a tough sell, and there are a lot of opportunities for people to make gifts, not only to this community but anywhere. You can give to just about any organization, whether it's the Cancer Society or whatever. One of the things that we really focus on is we're local. Mayo certainly is local, and that's great. But they also have off-site properties, and it's a good organization, no question. They've certainly done a great job of building the clinic to what it is today. One of the things we do focus on is we do things right here in Rochester. If you have ties to the community, that money pretty much will stay here. We don't give grants to outside this area, what we call the Rochester area. Our First Homes program probably is the first one where money started trickling a little bit outside of Olmsted County, but we're talking communities like Spring Valley and Pine Island, etc. So I mean, they're not that far off from here. But for the most part, it's pretty much all Olmsted County. So that's a big thing. People like to see their money stay here if they spend a significant amount of time here, and we certainly can do that. Some of the folks who do give to the foundation and set up funds, they certainly have the right to send their money outside the area, and that's certainly their prerogative. I know people who have given to the foundation, and they certainly support their alma maters. Maybe they went to school up in cities or something, and they certainly support that. And that's great because they're able to use their money through the foundation, and we certainly realize the interest over time as well, and their choice to invest within our organization. So we can certainly take the money there and help other things as well over time. So I think the biggest thing about our organization as opposed to others is it stays right here, and we help organizations throughout the area. Some of our funds are even scholarship funds. Stewartville Schools has a scholarship fund with us, and that money is used every year to help kids down in that community. So.
Do you court potential donors? I mean, without giving away state secrets, is there some way to kiss up to somebody that's got a lot of money?
With a big wallet, you bet. One of the things we do is we work with a lot of professional advisors in the community. We let them know who we are, what we do, because a lot of times somebody that has money, they want to make a gift somewhere, they don't know what to do. They say, look, I want some tax savings from this. What can I do with it? So we do go out and meet with professional advisors and let them know what our programs are, what we do, how we help the community, and hopefully they can convey this information to people who come in and seek advice and say, look, I want to realize the tax savings on this year. I had a sale of a piece of real estate or whatever, and I don't want to see that tax bite at the end of the year. So they certainly are aware of us, and they certainly do come to us, not only professional advisors, both financial and legal advisors. And our own board is great. They hear things, our staff hears things, and we certainly, work with people. Sometimes people just contact us, amazingly enough. So, we work with them and try and create a plan.
How long has the First Homes program been in place?
It was, the inception was announced in 1999. It probably started to get off the ground in about 2000, and 2001 we really started digging in, and last year was probably our biggest year. This year will probably be even a bigger year. The plan is to have the 875 initial homes done by 2004, and we're well on the way.
My name is Betty Carnegie, and I'm president of the Friends Railroad Society, another historic sites, and these guys back there scare the hell out of me. Say, what do you want to save an old house for? But it's the last legacy, tangible legacy that we have of the Neal brothers, of Charlie Neal. And without them, I was born and raised in Rochester, so without them, there is no real Rochester. There was no IBM even, But, so we're trying to save the house. So a few years ago, my son, they told me at the meeting, we're going to have a special speaker from the Rochester Area Foundation today, and it turned out to be my own kid. And I was just floored, you know. And he asked us to please put the money that we had in the bank into the Rochester Area Foundation for a time when the mansion might need it badly. So we had made our investment, and this year I'm president of the organization, and I had to write a letter to Steve asking, please, the catastrophe is happening, we have terrible leaks and severe leaks in the roof of the house, and it's going to crumble if we don't take care of it. And they had a board meeting, and we immediately were given more money than we actually invested. I mean, all these years it's been growing and growing and growing. And they sent us a check without any questions, and we thank you.
No, that's a good point. We hate to see that money leave our coffers, obviously, because it certainly can be put to future use, but we understand and recognize the needs in the community, and you know, our board of trustees recognizes that, and everybody who works in different committees recognizes that, and we have to make adjustments from time to time, and that certainly is one of them. It's not the first and it's not the last.
Is it just private directed money that can be withdrawn? I mean, like...
We have separate individual funds that are set up for like agencies, different organizations in town. You'll see a list of those in the annual report.
You're basically managing their money.
Right, right.
The foundation's money itself can't be taken.
The general fund, no. I mean, everything's pretty much commingled, and it's tracked separately as well. So I mean, everybody who has a fund with us gets a regular report on how that money is doing as well, and certainly because you know, especially donor advised funds, they want to make gifts through that fund.
And for what it's worth, the History Center has a fund that gets established at the area foundation as well. I think it's $50,000 at this point, but they're hoping to grow it to the point that it can sustain the History Center.
It's certainly a good use of that money.
Who evaluates grant proposals and decides, up or down when they come before you?
It's actually a somewhat of a very long process. For those who actually get money in the end. Obviously, we get a lot of requests for money, and isn't always all the money there, so never will be. Unfortunately, I wish I could say that there would be. Maybe someday there will. You just don't know, but you just get more money, the more people ask you for money, too. But we do have a distribution committee that works outside the board of directors. And the distribution committee meets regularly. We have a cycle throughout the year when grants can be submitted. There's 3 times throughout the years grant requests can be made to the foundation. And after those dates have passed, the committee gets to review all the applications for grants, and then they do meet, and they have discussion on it, and they make an initial determination whether it's significant enough to warrant further consideration. There's no actual decision made, it's just whether additional information needs to be reviewed at that time. At that point, that information is, there may be some, and it's very well possible one of those grants may be declined at that point, say we need more information, maybe apply next time. There are a lot of organizations that have trouble preparing grant applications, and maybe they need some help, and we'll work with them. We've done that with some organizations.
Well, before it gets to the distribution committee, though, who evaluates the grant request and puts the data together and so on?
Nobody.
I mean, our secretary that evaluates grants?
Our secretary, assembles them, and they go out to the distribution committee, and at that point, they're then reviewed by that committee. I see Jane's hand going.
Yeah, I'm on the distribution committee, and what happens is there's a pre-application, and the pre-application, probably only 50% of the pre-applications that come in actually are approved for a full grant development. And so it would be a case of members of the board plus some volunteers who will take a look at those pre-apps and say, this is something we think we should look at further. They need to develop a full grant. Then a full grant goes out to the agency and they develop that. It comes back in, and we spend a good couple of hours looking at those grants, as well as going out to the agency and talking directly to people who are on the board, to people who work in that agency, to people that they serve, in order to decide whether or not we would recommend to the Board of Trustees of the Rochester Area Police Foundation whether or not that grant should be funded. And then on a 6-month basis, we evaluate, we do follow-up work with the grants in order to assess whether or not they are doing what they said they would do as far as the grants are concerned.
Thank you.
Sure.
So in effect, it's a volunteer effort.
Well, yes, it's.
You don't have a professional grant
No,
evaluator?
no, we do not,
Okay.
no. It's all contributed services,
Thank you.
including, Chuck didn't tell you this, but including they pay for their own lunch. The board of directors pays for their own lunch.
So there is no free lunch?
There is no free lunch in Rochester Area Foundation, very true.
Chuck, do I understand correctly that you give away the interest that you earn on the endowment, right?
Typically, yeah. Sometimes it might dip into that and part of a fund, but typically it's the interest, yeah. Because we want that endowment to grow.
But like approximately how much did you have to give away last year?
You know, I had that on a sheet of paper in my office and I forgot to bring it with
I
me.
mean, it's like $100,000, $1 million.
Jane, you might know the number off the top of your head.
Is that the grant? How much do we do for
How
grant?
much interest did you have to give away last year?
Well, we don't always give it all away, so I
Yeah,
mean, that's the thing,
I would
yeah.
think it ranges in the $150,000 to $200,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
And certainly, as
Probably
the
the most
endowment
important.
grows, that money might go up. As it's gone down, as it has in the past year, we kind of put a little bit of a curve on it and say, let's be careful.
There's a really cute quote from Benjamin Franklin. He says the problem with the first 100 years are the most important for endowment.
There's not too many foundations been around that long now, that's the thing.
Can you give me some sense of how much money actually flows back into the community on an average year? Are we talking about $2 million, $10 million? You know, what kind of a monetary contribution do you end up making?
That's a good question because it's kind of a couple ways of answering that. As we said, our grants in the last year were about $200,000. Sometimes it's somewhat more than that, depending on what's available. But you also need to look at, I think, things like their First Homes program. That's run by the foundation, and there's a lot of money that's going out the door there as well to help people get into homes.
That's what prompted my question. I didn't hear the number.
And I wish I wish I had some of these in front of me, but I don't always work with the numbers.
I mean, I looked at the pamphlet, and you get $2,000 for Boys and Girls Club. So, there's got to be somebody who's looking at it, watching, and seeing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's certainly the role of committees on the Board of Trustees, the Board of Trustees as well, and our staff is, Steve Thornton, our Executive Director, certainly works on setting up budgets and knowing how much we can tap into that amount each year and presenting that information to committees.
So it would be safe to say that there's over $250,000 a year going back into the community.
Oh, I think so, definitely. Yeah. Probably much more with the First Homes now. Yeah.
Okay, we probably ought to wrap up. You can talk to Steve one-on-one. I did want to mention that the next Princess Cafe is March 12th, and that's going to be the History of Olmsted Medical Center, which should be really interesting. And the other thing I wanted to mention is February 23rd, down at the library, the Yagi Kobe series. That's a Sunday afternoon at 2:30. That's going to be Harley Flathers talking about his new book, Back in a Moment, The Lives and Times of Harley and June Flathers. So that would probably be really interesting too.
There is just one other thing. When we're talking about the Rochester Area Foundation, they have given the History Center a grant of $10,000 to look at the history of philanthropy in this community. We're getting ready to celebrate in 2004. So we're asking us to sort of reflect on the kind of gifts this community has known as far as philanthropy is concerned. And we're just kicking that study off this week. We will be talking to Mail, we'll be talking to Park and Rec, the library, churches, schools, you name it. Everybody is going to get an opportunity to talk about it. But what we want to do is be able to have short little statements about our philanthropy in this community, the goodness that we've all known, to be able to share with young people and to be able to share with adults, so that we sort of come back again to how good this community has been to us, and that we wish to continue that kind of goodness. So you'll be hearing more about that over the next year to 14 months as we develop that. If the articles are good enough, they may show up in the paper, and if they
Maybe on
are,
a website somewhere too.
yeah, and then we'll develop a website somewhere, and that will give you an opportunity to read it. But it is sort of an exciting kind of process, because it's easy for us to forget everything that's come to us in this community. So we'll sort of do some recall on that. Thank you.
Yeah. Did everybody get a packet of the brochure?